And now to the world of business with Karis Garland. Karis, thanks so much for joining us. This hour, we're going to be talking about one of the big four, KPMG. It's got a new CEO outlook for 2023.
Yeah, so this report is based on a survey of more than 1,300 CEOs, and it's seen as a comprehensive temperature check for business leaders around the world. This year's big issues for CEOs were geopolitical tensions, navigating working from home in the post-pandemic era, and generative AI. Well, joining me to talk more about this is Regina Mayor. She's the Global Head of Clients and Markets for KPMG. Thank you for being with us this evening, Regina.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start off with the issue of political uncertainty. Respondents consider it the greatest threat to business growth in the coming years, but it didn't feature at all in last year's survey. What happened in the last 12 months to change that?
So I think it's tied to how confident they feel about the global economy as well. So we found that 3 out of 4 CEOs are still reasonably confident in longer term growth prospects for the global economy, but they're starting to feel less certain about their own company's perspectives. And so in the top risks, we see geopolitics vaulting to number 1 of the top 5, climate change actually dropping to number 5, and in between things like emerging technology, operations, and supply chain, rounding out those top 5. I believe that what we're seeing is a manifestation of their concern about the things facing their companies directly and turning more inwardly about how to navigate their companies in these uncertain risks. Now, it's also interesting to note geopolitics didn't make the top 5 last year, even though the war in Ukraine was well underway at that point.
Indeed. And what about the issue of monetary policy? Because 70% of CEOs said that higher rates could risk a global recession, but they also see the cost of living pressures as a threat to their business as well. So how do they reconcile that?
Yeah, so I think that's, again, we're seeing some of the manifestation of customer behavior directly affecting the bottom lines of these businesses. So one of the other aspects of how that's playing out is fully 45% of French CEOs are holding money off the table from an M&A and an unwillingness to necessarily consider inorganic growth. A third of those globally feel that same way, but I thought it was more pronounced in France. And that's where you see the concern about long-term interest rates and the ultimate impact it will have on local economies, global economies, and their own bottom lines, having an impact on how they'll manage capital in the current months.
And we're in the post-pandemic era, trying to strike a balance between ways of working before COVID and after COVID. 87% of CEOs said they would be likely to reward workers who come back into the office. Did these CEOs not see the benefits of employees working from home that they saw during the pandemic?
I think it's CEOs leaning into trying to return to what they thought was best about a pre-COVID environment. So 64% globally said they're going to mandate or require some form of a return to in-office work. And 87%, as you pointed out, said they're going to reward folks for it. That's a recognition that they can't mandate because of the intergenerational workforces that we have today, the demands for flexibility. I believe we'll continue to see a hybrid, and we're going to look for more carrots in terms of getting people back to the office for the benefits of collaboration and working together versus sticks.
Right. And business leaders that you surveyed are investing heavily in generative AI, but we know that there are ethical challenges linked to this technology. And for example, we've seen Hollywood writers and actors actually going on strike because of the uncertainty around how this technology is going to be used in their industry. Can we see that happening in any other industry, first of all? And for generative AI, do the benefits outweigh these potential problems?
So we're a firm believer that generative AI is not going to replace people, but generative AI, people that use generative AI will be replaced by people that don't use generative AI. It will definitely improve how work gets done, and it'll improve the way people engage with technology. So CEOs recognize that. 70% says it's their top investment area. They're really worried, though, about the exposure that comes with cyber risk, ethical considerations, the lack of regulation, and then how do you actually upskill your employees and your clients, your stakeholders, in terms of using generative AI? You have things like prompt engineering, like, well, how do you ask generative AI the questions that you need to in order to help you do your job well? How do you create the closed loop so you can take advantage of the data that you have as an organization and you're not commingling that data with public information and potentially releasing your intellectual property into the public domain? So many challenges, but it's growing exponentially, and all of us realize that there's more potential that outweighs the risks.
Right. Well, it's indeed an interesting topic, and we'll have to see how that evolves over the next few years. Regina Mayor, thank you very much for joining us. You are the Global Head of Clients and Markets for KPMG. Thank you. Right, now for the final word on Wall Street for the week. Stocks rallied despite concerns that blockbuster jobs data for September will push the Federal Reserve to again hike interest rates. The Dow Jones closing 0.87% higher, the S&P 500 adding 1.18%, and the Nasdaq adding 1.6% at the bell. That rounds up the business news for now, John Emil.
Always good to see the stocks rallying, isn't it, Karis? Thanks, Karis Garland with the business.